At 3:17 in the morning, every receiver in the Bureau archive caught the same tone. Not a burst of static, not a fragment of weather band noise. A clean, patient note, held for exactly long enough to make the room feel staged. This is an original fictional case file from the Bureau of Lost Signals, reconstructed from archive notes, signal maps, and corrupted monitoring footage. The strange part is not that a dead satellite appeared in the log. The strange part is that the log says the satellite answered before the antenna woke up. The file begins with a decommissioned relay satellite listed as cold, tumbling, and silent. Its last confirmed telemetry was years old. Its orbit had decayed into the kind of bureaucratic footnote nobody checks unless something goes wrong. Then, without a command ping, it broadcast a tone clean enough to cut through every receiver in the room. The first technician wrote only one sentence in the margin. The sound made the lights feel farther away. That is not a measurement. It is not evidence in the normal sense. But Bureau files keep human details when the machines start disagreeing with each other, because sometimes the room notices the case before the instruments do. The waveform did not look like noise. It repeated in small, deliberate steps, like someone tapping a locked door from the other side of the tape. Each replay showed the same carrier tone, but the silence around it kept changing. On the third pass, a timestamp appeared inside the gap where no timestamp had been encoded. The source tag pointed to a ground station that should have been dark. Its maintenance records ended decades earlier. The road into the site was gone from newer maps. The generator log had no fuel record. Still, the signal behaved as if something at that station was acknowledging the satellite every time the Bureau listened. That is when the impossible timing showed up. The antenna registered the tone at 3:17. The satellite log stamped it at 3:16. The archive copy, sealed in a folder nobody had opened that night, carried the same tone with a timestamp from 3:15. The farther back they looked, the earlier the signal became. By dawn, the Bureau had 3 versions of the same recording. One came from the live receiver, one came from the satellite trace, one came from an archive box that had been locked before the shift began. The sound was identical, except for one detail. Each version had one more layer beneath the tone. The added layer was not a voice at first. It was pressure. A low shape under the audio, too organized to be room noise, too soft to read as language. When the analysts slowed it down, the waveform stopped looking like a message and started looking like a map. The satellite was not sending from orbit. That was the turn in the file. It was rebroadcasting something already inside the Bureau archive, as if the dead machine had become an antenna for a recording buried in the room below them. After that discovery, replay became restricted, not because the audio was dangerous in a dramatic way, because it changed. Every time someone played Signal 17, the recording gained a new trace, and every new trace seemed to know more about the equipment that had just listened to it. A security camera outside the archive caught nothing supernatural. No figure, no flicker, no impossible shadow. Just a monitor waking up by itself, then a folder sliding 6 millimeters toward the edge of the desk. The Bureau kept that detail because no one in the room touched it. The map coordinate arrived near the end of the tape. It did not point to the ground station. It did not point to the satellite's last orbit. It hovered above the planet, moving with the old decay path for 6 seconds, then stopping directly over the archive building. If the signal was a warning, it arrived too late. If it was an invitation, it arrived too early. The Bureau's conclusion was smaller and worse. The signal was using the archive as a place to remember itself. The final packet contained no sentence, no name, and no threat. Only a case number that had not been assigned yet, followed by a coordinate that pointed above the atmosphere. The file was sealed under Signal 17, with one handwritten instruction: do not replay alone. For the next hour, the Bureau tried to prove the case was only bad equipment. They changed receivers. They changed cables. They moved the live copy to an isolated recorder with no network access and a clean power line. The tone followed anyway. It did not get louder. It did not get clearer. It simply arrived in the new machine, as if it had been waiting there first. That detail changed the room. A normal signal travels from a source to a receiver. Signal 17 behaved like the receiver was the source it had been looking for. The more careful the Bureau became, the more specific the recording became in return. Every safeguard gave the file another surface to describe. The last analyst on shift noticed a thin line beneath the carrier tone. It was not speech, but it had rhythm. 3 short pulses, a pause, then a longer scrape that sounded like a door being dragged across concrete. When they compared it against the archive building map, the pauses matched the distance between the case room, the stairwell, and the sealed storage level below. No one opened the lower level that morning. The public copy is clear about that. The Bureau logged the coordinate, sealed the tape, and moved the dead satellite file into a black folder with no external label. But the archive index still changed. A new entry appeared between 2 older cases, dated 1 minute before the first receiver ever heard the tone. That is why Signal 17 matters inside the Bureau mythology. It was not just a broadcast from a dead machine. It was the first file that treated the archive like an antenna. The first case where listening became part of the transmission, and the first time a sealed record seemed to know what number it would be given. That is where the public copy ends. The Bureau did not solve the satellite. It did not recover the ground station. It did not prove who sent the first tone. It only confirmed that a dead object spoke, the room answered, and the archive had been waiting for both. The next file begins with a town that heard the tone before the Bureau did. If that receiver appears in another archive, this case is no longer about a satellite. It is about what the signal was trying to reach.